Mac here on Birds 365, and there's our guy, Tommy Lawlor from EaglesBlitz.com, longtime Eagle beat reporter with his own website now. I was reading EaglesBlitz.com right before I came on today, and Tommy's already got his opinions on Howie Roseman and his comments yesterday up on his website. You need to check it out, IGGLES, EaglesBlitz.com. Tommy, Saquon Barkley. You heard Tommy always gets on early. You gotta love him. So he sat there for the last 15 minutes while me and McCall.
Yeah, I apologize, Tommy.
As do I. Sorry about
Who wouldn't want to listen to two grumpy old men yell at each other?
Yeah, we're like, wow.
About the bell cow backs. What do you think about Saquon Barkley? What is that number? We're trying to put it in some kind of an understandable number of overall production that Barkley would need to achieve. First of all, do you agree? Does it have to just be rushing yards, or can it be rushing and passing yards combined? What's the number you'll use to determine, yes, Saquon Barkley is special? Howie Roseman called him special at the owners' meetings. What is his production got to look like for him to be special in your eyes?
Well, I'm going to make my prediction and say he's the first guy in NFL history to go 2,000 yards on the ground and 2,000 in the air.
Yeah, that's special. Now that is special.
So
and you ditched that Eagle pom so quickly. I never even saw it. You hit that well, mister.
That I would tip my hat and say the Eagles are correct. He is special.
That would be wild. So I think one of the things that you guys both kind of missed is you're talking about his yards. I think the one thing with Barkley is you're going to see an impact on how he affects other players. And if you think about the beginning of last year, defenses did not pay attention to DeAndre Swift. They focused on shutting down Jalen Hurts. And if you remember that Minnesota game, I think DeAndre ran for like 175 yards. Yeah. And you would watch plays where there were just huge gaps and easy space for him to run, and any player could have run in those gaps. Defenses are going to have to look at Saquon Barkley and say, he is a weapon. He's a guy we have to account for. We can't just hope that we're going to stop him. So there's going to be an effect that he's going to have that'll boost the yardage for the receivers. It'll help Jalen Hurts as a runner, and it's hard to predict numbers exactly. I think he's going to probably run somewhere in the 1,200 yard range. As for receiving, I don't know a specific number. John's exactly right that the Eagles don't throw to the running backs. I do think they'll do it more with him, but I don't know that it'll be volume, but I think there'll be the potential for impact plays. If you watch him as a Giant, go back to his days with Penn State, watch him on the wheel route. All of a sudden, he's a guy that can get down the field and create separation from a linebacker, maybe even a safety on the wheel route. That's just what happened in the last couple of years with Miles and DeAndre. And so all of a sudden you could throw the ball vertically to him where you maybe get a 20 or 30 yard chunk play. And so again, there may not be volume. There may not be 60 catches or 70 catches, whatever, but you may get some impact plays. And we all know Nick Sirianni, he's talked about his offense. He's always talked about wanting chunk plays. Barkley gives them a guy who can deliver chunk plays as both a runner and a receiver.
Yeah, and I don't know when he popped into the green room, but my actual thought, Tommy, is it's very esoteric. And I mentioned that word with Saquon Barkley. It's got to be the presence. But I'm also realistic, and people judge by numbers. Sure. And the Eagles' numbers in the backfield over the past 2 years are pretty stinking impressive with above average players. So to me, that complicates things even more, because I think your assessment is correct in that it's about his presence more than the numbers. But again, that's esoteric, and that's not necessarily, you can point to this, you can point to that. If he's creating space, like Nick Sirianni used to say about Jody's favorite player, Quez Watkins, is anyone going to mention that because A.J. Brown makes a big play? So our buddy Jimmy Kempski said it best. I'll read what Jimmy said. Is Barkley special? That's Howie's word, not my word. The Eagles say he is. We'll see. If so, it'll be worth the money he got. If not, he won't. Hashtag analysis. That's what it comes down to. Is he special? Does he make a difference? Nick Sirianni at the coach's breakfast this morning is already talking about he's like A.J. Brown. A.J.'s thinking special. This is the bar the Eagles are creating, not me. And that's a very, very high bar.
right?
If they're right, it's great.
Listen, I can only tell you, I watched the guy throughout his career at Penn State, and he was absolutely a dynamic player in college. I've watched him throughout his career with the Giants, and I'll tell you, as somebody who's sitting there watching a game where he's playing against the Eagles, every time he touches the ball, you're nervous, because he's got that ability to break a tackle, or if the Giants, God forbid, actually blocked well on a given play, and he had room to run, could turn that into a big play. So I think he's got big time potential. And if you could study, and I don't know the numbers right offhand, I haven't had a chance to look it up yet, yards before contact, the Eagles are amongst the league leaders every year. So the runners have space to get to the line of scrimmage, the second level, before they have to deal with a defender. I would think that Barkley is nowhere close to that because the Giants had mediocre to bad offensive lines throughout his time in New York. And all of a sudden now he's going to have good blocking. Now, the first couple of times, who knows? Maybe he'll freak out and he won't know what to do. Backfield, he might.
Well, he has. I mean, that part's fair. He said been very poor supporting cast. No question about that. He'll have a better supporting cast here. You're going to have great receivers. Still good offensive line. We'll see how good without Jason Kelce, but it's still going to be top 5. I would think, bare minimum. It's still going to be a very good offensive line. You got weapons all over the place. You got a good quarterback who's a +1, so even that helps the running back even more. There are no excuses.
No.
So,
listen, it's a risky move. There's no question. But in reality, just about every move in free agency is a risk, right?
Yeah.
You have to take chances. And I think what the Eagles saw was, hey, listen, here's a guy that does have, in their mind, special potential. I think you could just physically, when you watch him, his speed, his size, he's a heavy back. He's a powerful back. He can break tackles. His ability to catch the ball in the backfield. Whether he has special production is yet to be seen, but I do think he has special ability. And they're saying, let's take a chance on this guy with special ability. If we put him in our offense with the good blocking, the good players around him, and a team that's probably going to play with the lead a decent amount of the time, it gives us the ability to dictate the offense is what we want to, our defense is what we want to do. And these will all be things that Barkley's not had. And to me, he's a guy worth taking a chance on because they didn't have to trade for him. They didn't have to give up a second or third round pick in a contract. They just had to give him some money. And you say, yeah, they paid him a little bit more, but I think Swift's got like $8 million a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he's 4.5. And we know the salary cap went higher than expected. Right. So it's almost like the Eagles took that extra money, said, let's throw that at Barkley. And we're essentially getting the same thing if we had kept Swift for $8 million a year. But we've got a guy that we think could be an even better player than DeAndre Swift.
And he'll be given a chance to show that next year. All right. One more quasi Saquon question, and we'll move on. He's the second highest paid back after only McCaffrey in the league. There are a couple other guys that are close. Again, contracts, it depends on what you look at, when you put the value on. There are other guys who are very comparable to him. I think it's just a 2-year deal at most, and it could even be a 1-year deal. So those who lean heavily on the money aspect of it, all right. If that's the case, Tommy Lawlor, if they could have gotten another running back for half the price, and because it's the Eagles and it's their system, it's their offensive line, it's AJ and Devontae, anybody could step in and get 1,000 yards, and you could pay him half of what you pay Saquon. Who'd they miss out on? Because it's a capped league. The cap went up, but it went up for everybody. So everybody got that same extra built-in viability. Is there a free agent this offseason where you say, damn, if the Eagles had been able to get to that number, he might have come here because we're an actual Super Bowl contender rather than going to a middling team or something like that? Was there a guy, a specific individual that you go, yeah, that's where the Eagles, if the Eagles made an exception for Saquon Barkley, was there a player out there you would have preferred them make an exception for and land as a free agent this offseason?
I can't really think of anybody.
Me neither. That's why I'm on the.
I know
Saquon
mine.
train.
You know mine. Now they would have had the timing didn't work out. They would have had to wait. But for 1 year, and you want a player who can impact in the ground game and the receiving, Aaron Jones. Jones.
Yeah.
1 year.
Although, listen, only if he gets to play Dallas about 10 times a year.
That well, if you look at Aaron Jones,
twice.
I mean, the ironic part, he was the best running back in football down the stretch last year and in the playoffs. As you mentioned, he single-handedly destroyed the Cowboys. He was hurt at the beginning of the season and only played at the end of the season. Plus, he's 29, so that impacts. But he's been consistently great catching the football over years and years and years and years. You talk about wheel routes, Tommy. That guy's got wheel routes all over the place, making great catches, dominating against linebackers, had 16 touchdowns one year, consistent 1,000-yard guy. Now he had a better supporting cast. That's fair to point out. But we're talking about 5.5 yards per carry, 4.6, 5.3. That guy, for 1 year, $7 million, I think he got. Yeah, I would have rolled the dice there. I think you have a more impactful player, and you don't have to worry about him as much as more because he doesn't have the reputation.
The only thing about Aaron Jones, so the fact the Packers let him walk, you're a little curious about that because he seemed like such a good fit there, right? When I haven't studied his numbers, whatever, but when I think of Aaron Jones, I think of a player who's a little bit erratic, where he has games where he's phenomenal, and we see him against Dallas. He runs for 160, 170 yards. He does crazy things, and you just think, God, what a player. And then he'll have some other games where he's very human, and so I would say it's a little bit of a boom or bust guy. Now, the numbers you gave are good numbers, but, is he one of those guys? Can he be consistent week to week, or is he a little bit hot and cold depending on who he's playing? So that's the only thing I would say there. But the Eagles really, listen, there wasn't a great linebacker to be had. You could go for Patrick Queen, but you're going to pay him big money. And there was the question of, was he worth it? Because he only got good in Baltimore when Roquan Smith came with him. So now that he's on his own, you sit there and say, is that a guy I want to invest a bunch of money and take a chance? Because the Patrick Queen before Roquan Smith was a mediocre player.
Yeah.
And so it would have been nice if they could have had a better solution, a linebacker, but there just weren't great options. And so I think going with Devin White is fine with me. There's risk in that, but again, he's a talented player. So spending the money on Barkley, listen, we know Howie. He's talked about this. He goes, if you try to balance out your offense and defense and try to make this move and that move, you're going to do yourself a disservice. What you have to do is figure out where can you make yourself a really, really good team and focus on that side of the ball. The Eagles, obviously, because of Hurts and A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, the offensive line, offense is clearly the better unit. So they got a guy with that dynamic potential to add to that offense to make it a great offense in their mind. And the defense is not going to be a great defense. There's no question about that. So they're going to kind of patch that thing together and hope that the defense can be good enough to match with a great offense, and that can get them back into title contention.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. I didn't realize Aaron Jones had less than 900 yards from the line of scrimmage last year.
Yeah, he played 11 games, Jody.
I understand that, but do we not look at him as a guy who would tread off the tire? He's a year older. He's 2 years older, and he's played one more year in the league. If we're worried about Saquon Barkley because there's a lot of tread off that tire, why would we just easily accept Aaron Jones and think he's going to be great?
Well, because I said it's for a year and it's for half the money.
And Barkley's too.
No, but it's for half the money. It's a year. And plus, again, you're talking about, yes, he's older, but he actually has less touches in his career than Saquon Barkley. He's under 1,500. Saquon's right at 1,500. He's about 1,350. He's been more impactful. Now he's played on better teams. His yards per carry is outrageous. His receiving ability is outrageous. I said for 1 year, if you think you're a Super Bowl contender and you watched him in the playoffs and down the stretch last year, he was the best running back in football. And I criticized Green Bay because they're going out and paying big money to Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs had a terrible year last year. And they just watched the guy lift them, turn lipped them farther in the playoffs than anybody thought they could be. Dallas didn't lose in the regular season at home. They destroyed them at AT&T Stadium on the shoulders of Aaron Jones. He made Jordan Love. Everybody thinks Jordan Love's a superstar. Part of that is because Aaron Jones made him look like a superstar. I've said for 1 year, you asked the question, that's my guy. If I'm trying to get to the Super Bowl, that's my guy.
All right, so I'm going to ask this of Tommy. I'll give you Aaron Jones and 300 yards total from the line of scrimmage next year versus Saquon Barkley. Who you taking?
Where did Aaron Jones go to again? I'm drawing a blank. Is it Houston?
Went to the Vikings. Signed with the Vikings after the Packers cut him after they picked up Josh Jacobs. So he signs with Minnesota. I'll give you plus 300 yards. Barkley outgains him from the line of scrimmage by 300 yards. Who do you want, Aaron Jones or Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, well, with the 300 yards, I'll probably take Jones, but there's no question in my mind Barkley's the better player. So, yeah, listen, I think the Eagles made a good move in getting Barkley. Jones, it'll be interesting to see how he does in Minnesota. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold's the quarterback? If it were Kirk Cousins, a healthy Kirk Cousins in 17 games, that's an easy bet, but it's not. I mean, we just talked about we're making excuses for Saquon Barkley for supporting cast. You know,
Aaron Jones is going to have J.J. McCarthy, who some people think is the next coming of Tom Brady out of Michigan. Aaron Jones could go for 2,000 yards. If J.J. McCarthy's the next Tom Brady, Aaron Jones should go for 2,000 yards.
I find it funny when people talk about supporting cast when they want to talk about supporting cast, but don't talk about supporting cast when they don't want to talk about supporting cast.
Didn't Aaron Jones have a very good Jordan Love last year as compared to Tommy Cutlets of the Giants? Supporting cast. Who had the better supporting cast last year?
Okay.
Saquon Barkley or Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones's team not help raise his game?
No doubt, Jody, but how are you not seeing? Then you're ignoring, Saquon Barkley's going to be with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in that offensive line, and Aaron Jones is going to be with Sam Darnold in a goofy offensive line that they haven't fixed in a decade, and now it doesn't matter. No, it's that's his problem. That's all I'm trying to point out.
And I'm trying to point out that you're not leaning enough on Aaron Jones' success last year being because he was on a good team as compared to Saquon Barkley, who didn't have a stellar statistical year because he was on a very bad team.
Well, I think we all saw the Packers down the stretch and in the playoffs. Is anybody saying he didn't play well down the stretch and in the playoffs? I mean,
of course not. He was huge.
I mean, the guy played the way he played.
Listen, he vanquished the Dallas Cowboys. It should be the NFL MVP as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Tommy, here's a word that Howie used yesterday that I was questioning. Bringing back CJGJ, because I think 98% of Eagle fans like it, as they should. He does bring ball hawking skills back. He does bring attitude back. Howie talked a lot about that. He also said toughness. Is CJGJ a tough player?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's not
really
Brian Dawkins, rugged, that kind of guy, but he's a physical player. If you go back and rewatch the Super Bowl, which we can debate whether that's a healthy thing or not, he played with a lot of attitude. You know, he was very physical and did his part. He played really hard in that game. And you see that effort, and that there's some toughness that goes into effort. And if you watch the Eagles defense last year, and I would question whether that's healthy to do, they were Charmin soft with Bradley Roby and James Bradbury. Those guys would have been considered soft if they were playing flag football last year. And so you get a guy like CJGJ, he'll hit, he'll tackle. Again, he's not going to be a Brian Dawkins or Andre Waters just destroying guys over the middle, but he's physical, he tackles, he's aggressive, and that kind of toughness, there's value in that. And again, his playmaking ability, that's really, you know, you could go get a safety who's bigger and more physical, but you want a guy who's going to go get you some turnovers, some takeaways, and that's what he can do with his playmaking ability. That's been true going back to New Orleans and even when he was at the University of Florida. So he brings you a combination of skills, and the Eagles secondary desperately needed that last year. and will benefit from it this upcoming season.
And by the way, Tommy, why would you even want a safety like Brian Dawkins in the hip drop environments of the NFL? I mean, you're going to get 5 15-yard penalties each game to have a physical safety. So you got to play under the rules that they put on you. And I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is everything the Eagles say is, as far as setting that energy. I love that signing. And the numbers are out, by the way. The cap numbers, 2024, 2.6 million, 2025, 4 million, 2026, 5.1 million. Of course, void years 2027 to 2030 to help that out. I love that signing. I mean, I'm all on board with CJ Gardner-Johnson in this era because he's a playmaker. Now, I am concerned, injury prone. We just kicked Devontae Maddox out the door because he's injury prone. When CJ was here, lacerated kidney, missed 5 games. Tore his pec, I believe, in week 2 or week 3 in Detroit. I am concerned about the way he plays and the physicality and his body type, similar to Avonte Maddox. Eagles fans used to bother me, Tommy, when they would say Avonte Maddox is made out of glass. You probably get those comments as well. I'm like, he is a tough dude who's 5'9", 185, and he's playing like he's 210, and that's the reason he gets hurt. I get similar vibes to CJ. Is that do you see a little bit of that?
I think CJ has been a little bit more durable than Avonte. Avonte's a tough guy. When he was a kid, I had him pegged as an Eagles target because I thought Jim Schwartz would absolutely love him because of how hard he played, how aggressive and tough he was. And it was great at Pitt. It was great. And he got to the NFL where he's no longer hitting boys, he's hitting men. And his body all of a sudden hitting, 190-pound wide receivers or 210-pound running backs. He's hitting Derrick Henry. He's hitting 260-pound tight ends. He's hitting receivers that are 225. And all of a sudden his body couldn't handle that, right? He had, I think, one season where he played like 16 games. But he's had a bunch of seasons where he missed a handful of games here or there. And listen, he got hurt because he was tough. He played bigger than he was. So give him credit for being that kind of a player. It's unfortunate because, you can't count on him. So I think the Eagles did the right thing in moving away from him. There's a risk with CJ, no question about that. But I think that because of the production he has, where Avonte always showed his flashes. CJ, what do you have, 6 interceptions in 2022?
Led the NFL, missed 5 games. Yeah.
And so he's had that potential where he was a game changer. And we never saw Avonte be a game changer on a regular basis. So if you're going to take a chance on injury history, you take it with a game changer as opposed to the guy who's a solid player. And so that's what they're doing there. But, it is interesting that, the Eagles, I'm a little curious what's going on with depth at safety because Reed Blankenship in his 2 years has missed games, right?
Yeah.
And Chauncey has missed games.
Sydney torn ACL. In week 18.
Right now, you sit there and say, I don't know if Mekhi Garner is penciled in as a safety for sure, and if not, you got Tristan McCollum. A
lot of people brought up Justin Simmons, and the Eagles should double down at safety with CJ and Justin Simmons. I kind of like Reed Blankenship as a prospect. I hear what you're saying injury-wise, but I kind of like Sidney Brown as a prospect, and he'll be back. He's young. It's a 9-month injury, not a 12-month injury any longer. He'll be back early in the season. It is a difficult question because you consider yourself a Super Bowl contender, and obviously Justin Simmons is a great player, older. And then you're trying to serve 2 masters with younger guys who might develop. Where are you in that sort of tightrope?
I believe in focusing on the younger guys. And I think Howie's been smart this year to sign guys that are almost exclusively in their prime. Devontae Parker's in his 30s. And I think one other player might be 29, but most of the other guys are 25, 26, 27. And listen, last year, they signed some guys that were in that age range, and then once the season started, they loaded up on older guys, and we just saw, Bradley Roby was not good. We saw Shaq Leonard had his struggles. Julio Jones was 35 and looked like he was 35.
Yeah.
And they just had all these older guys, and it just didn't go well. And I think that the Eagles need to build for a 2 or 3 year run and not a 1 year run. Last year, it felt like they were focused on 2023. Now it looks like they're focused on 2024 and 2025. So go with the young guys, and just have a plan at safety. That, okay, we got CJ GJ, we got Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown will be back by, let's say, Thanksgiving or something like that. So you get at least a third of the season out of him. But you need some other stuff there. Maybe Mekhi Garner. Listen, he showed some flashes. If you think he's a safety, then okay, maybe you're better off there than I'm saying. It's just the Eagles are so non-committal. Even this morning, Nick Sirianni, which God love me, I get that he's paranoid, looking for advantages, but he doesn't want to say, "Oh, Cam Jurgens is going to be our center." It's like, come on, man.
I know.
Can you not just...
the ironic thing is he said at the NFL media the day before Cam, he talked like Cam was the center. I don't get Nick. I don't get Nick at times.
I get all coaches want every advantage possible, but at a certain point you go, he's going to be your center,
Yeah.
Unless they draft Jackson Powers Johnson in the first round and make him the center.
Well, they wouldn't call him the right guard last year for a long time until he showed up one day and said, "Why do you keep asking me? He's the only guy who's taking rep. We keep asking you because you wouldn't admit it. That's why."
Idiot.
Well, no, I get that you do want competition. You want players they have to earn positions. And I do understand that, but sometimes it's obvious what's going to happen. And Nick's just like, he loves to say, "Listen, I don't have to make a decision until September 6th or whenever opening day is." And you go, "Come on, man! I don't expect you to give me the playbook. I don't need to know what the first 5 plays are going to be. But can you just go ahead and tell me something that we're 90% sure of to start with? Are you really getting an advantage on whoever the Eagles are going to play opening day by not saying?"
I think so.
All right, Tommy, since we just got your opinion on the Eagles and how they should be handling it and your propensity to look toward youth, what day is Hassan Reddick going to get cut?
Never.
They got to run him off the team. He's 30 years old. Come on, you just said Eagles have to go young. They got all these old guys off the scrap heap last year, and that's why they fell apart. Well, Hassan Reddick's 30. You got to run his ass out of town. If you're going young, if the Eagles have to be looking at a 2 or 3 year picture, then you got to get rid of Hassan Reddick, right?
Well, he's not Jody McDonald old, so let's, he's still got a little bit left in the tank.
Right.
Yeah, they're trying to trade him. There's no question.
So Hassan's 30, Simmons is 31. Simmons is too old to think about signing because you don't want to keep Reed Blankenship on the bench. But Hassan Reddick, you're ready to bring back and hopefully have him get 12 sacks. I didn't know that 12-month difference was the world.
No, Reddick's going to get traded. I mean, listen, that's what they want to do. That's what he wants, more money, and the Eagles don't want to pay him any more money. And we know they've already loaded up on Bryce Huff. They worked things out with Josh Sweat. They've got Brandon Graham coming back. They've got Nolan Smith coming back. They added Zach Bond. So they got a bunch of edge rushers. I think they're ready to move on from Hassan. Listen, he wants more money, and they understand that. It's a business. He thinks he's outplayed his contract. He wants more money while he can get it. So hopefully they'll work out a trade, get a decent draft pick for him, let him go somewhere. Somebody gives him a new deal. He gets the money he wants, and the Eagles have a younger set of pass rushers, and we'll see if they can be as productive. There's definitely a risk there.
Yeah. At Lawlor NFL, I want to apologize to Tommy again. He had to listen to the 2 Muppets arguing in the what do you call that in the theater? The box,
the opera box.
Yeah, the opera box. Thank you. Eaglesblitz.com. Make sure you follow Tommy there. Does a tremendous job. You brought up Zach Bond a little bit there. I didn't know if you heard us before we got into the Saquon discussion.
I did.
Every once in a while, Howie serves up an unforced error. Might be the quarterback factory. I think he did that with Zach Bond, comparing him to Andrew Van Ginkel for a couple reasons. One, Van Ginkel's going to play. Bond isn't. So why are you putting those expectations on him? I don't know. It bothered me a little bit. It's a little thing, but every once in a while he does something like that. I'm like, why? Why do that? Why
So
do
you
that to
say
the kid?
he's not going to play, but let's think about this now. The Eagles added 3 players on the first day of free agency: Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, and Zach
Yeah, they
Ball.
definitely targeted him. They
Right?
wanted him. Yeah.
This is a guy they wanted. They went
Yeah.
aggressively after. And
Yeah.
I think, we talk money's always a key. I heard you guys say, why didn't he just go get Van Ginkel? Well, they got the cheaper version, right? So if they're going to get Barkley, then they pass on a Van Ginkel and go get Zach Bond, and they try to see, hey, listen, Van Ginkel is going to be a starter. He started 11 games last year.
Yeah.
Bond is going to be a guy who's going to be a rotational player. He's a good fit for Fangio's defense as a guy who can set the edge, he can rush the passer, and then if you put him in an inside linebacker, he's got some potential to play there. He's a good blitzer, so he's a guy that can move around, do some different things
But
with.
barring injury, Tommy, where's he going to play? I mean, you just ran the litany of edge rushers. Even if Hassan isn't here, you still have to get. It's going to be Bryce Huff. It's going to be Josh Sweat. It's going to be Nolan Smith. It's going to be BG. He could be the pit guy there if Hassan goes. If Hassan doesn't go, he's the 6th guy. And then all-ball linebacker, yes, lack depth. But if Nakobe Dean's healthy, he's playing. If Devin White's healthy, he's playing until he gets benched for ineffectiveness. Where's he playing? That's my concern.
No, I hear you. And it's a legitimate concern. I think what it is, I think you're going to see them really get back to rotating guys where last year they got away from that a little bit. And if you go back to 2022, they did more rotating, kept everybody fresh, limited snaps, and the production was good. Last year, they did not rotate guys nearly as much. And I think guys wore down as the season went on. I think they're going to rotate guys. And the other thing is Brandon Graham last year played more in nickel looks on the inside as a pass rusher. So, if you're giving him some snaps there, you can put a guy like Zach Bond on the outside and have him and Nolan Smith as the backup edge rushers to Huff and Sweat. And then have, Graham as inside and outside. So there's reps to be had if you move guys around, because we know the best inside rusher in recent years has been Fletcher Cox.
Right.
He's gone.
He's no longer there.
So they're going to need to be creative with how they get inside rushes. Maybe they put Josh Sweat inside some. So I think, listen, they've got probably more guys than snaps. It's going to be awkward. It's never going to be a healthy fit there, because you're always either going to have too many snaps for certain guys or not enough snaps. It's hard to get it just right. But I think that you'd rather have too many players than not enough players. We've all seen some Eagles defenses that were thin at defensive end and were painful to watch. And so they're not going through that. And if Nolan Smith turns out to be the guy they think, then he plays more, and so be it. If he doesn't pan out as expected, then you got Ball in there to compete. You've got Brandon Graham there. You got Sweat. And of course, we'll see what happens with Huff. So it's going to be wild. And if Reddick, they can't get a good deal for him and keep him, then things get kind of crazy, because not everybody can be active on game day, and that gets really complicated. So again, that ties back into why moving Reddick would make a lot of sense. Get an asset back, free up some reps, go younger, and you're kind of making a 2 or 3 year decision there. If you were making it for one game, you'd want Reddick for the game, but again, you're always kind of thinking down the road as well.
And because of age, I would say L'Jarius Sneed is a more viable star than Hassan Reddick right now. Not saying he's a better or had a better year. Because of his age, I would say he's a more viable player on the open market. He got a third. They got a future third for him. So good luck getting a good pick for Hassan Reddick. I just don't think it's going to be out there, Tommy.
It might not.
And then it gets even more debatable and fun. T. Lawlor, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Everybody should check out his website if you're any kind of an Eagles fan. Eagles, IGGLES, Blitz.com. Tommy, thanks for jumping in. We'll get you back up in a couple of weeks, shortly before the draft, brother. Okay?
Sounds good. You guys take it easy and don't go too hard on each other.
Yeah,
let's not let Saquon divide us now.
Yeah, it's all on Saquon. It's Saquon's fault.
He's special.
He's special. So it's Tommy Lawlor. Tommy Lawlor here with us.
You're special. Tommy's special.
He is very special. All right, McDonald McMullen here with you on Bird Street 65. Birds fans, have I got a deal for you? Right now, here is your chance to save upwards of 40% on your car insurance, and you can do it with one of JAKIB Sports' great partners. Here's what you need to do. Call one of their 2 managing general partners, either Jim or Fran, and tell them you're a friend of both JAKIB Sports and Bird Street 65.
Hi, I'm Jim Muehlbronner, Managing Partner at Del Val Insurance Group. Give us a call. We're a local, knowledgeable agency, not an 800 number. Go Birds!